This is episode 429 of That Shakespeare Life.
Hi, I'm Wendy Wall, co-editor of the Poulter Project. Another great method for studying the life of William Shakespeare includes listening to this. It's That Shakespeare Life with my friend, Cassidy Cash.
Welcome to That Shakespeare Life with Cassidy Cash. Cassidy believes that if you desire to successfully learn or perform Shakespeare's plays, then understanding the real life and history of William Shakespeare himself is a must. That Shakespeare Life is the podcast that helps you go beyond the curtain of some of Shakespeare's most iconic works and explore the world of early modern England as Shakespeare would have lived it, learning from the writers, historians, and performers who know it best. And now, here's Cassidy.
Elaborate theatrical performances in Shakespeare's lifetime presented before the reigning monarch were known as court masques. These intricate and complex stories were presented in grand fashion, sparing no expense on costumes, props, and special effects. The most famous masques has to be that of Robert Dudley, who hired actual performers from the Comedia del Arte in Italy to perform amazing feats of light, sound, and performance in an effort to propose marriage to the Queen of England. While it makes sense that Dudley would go out of his way to be over the top in his endeavors, the other masques taking place in Shakespeare's lifetime were no less sensational. From Ben Jonson to Inigo Jones and the decorated halls of Whitehall Palace, masques of any stripe were the creme de la creme of performances. For this reason, their costumes were not only breathlessly expensive, but they often pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable to wear in public and included fabric, accessories, design, and presentation that showcased art and story as primary. In many ways, court masques, costumes, and clothing were the high fashion world of Shakespeare's England. This week, our guest, Sarah Jane Downing, returns to the show. She's a fashion historian and author of Fashion in Shakespeare's England. She visits today to take us back to the 16th and 17th century court masques under Elizabeth I and James I to take an up-close look at the outfits, the scandals, and the expensive price tag that went along with costuming the most opulent nights of entertainment in all of early modern England. As you're listening to the show today, you can see the visual extras we're referencing, including paintings of court costumes and illustrations, as well as Whitehall Palace and more information on the Masque of Blackness and some of the other masques that we're going to be talking about in today's conversation. You can look through all of this as you listen to the show right now on our Patreon page. Visit patreon.com/thatshakespearelife and sign up to be a member of our show and access all the extras. Again, that's patreon.com/thatshakespearelife. And now, let's dive into the history. Hello, Sarah Jane. Welcome back to That Shakespeare Life.
Hi, Cassidy. It's lovely to be with you again.
What is a vizard, and how was it worn, and who would have been wearing it?
Oh, my goodness. Fantastic question. The vizard mask was one of these incredible accessories. It appears in Britain around about 1560, and it's thought that it originated with the Carnivale in Venice. And it sort of made a progression across Europe to come to be an accessory at the court. That was its first sort of primary purpose. What it was a mask that, unlike the kind that you would tie on or hold, it was a perfect oval that would fit very, very closely to the face. And you would hold it on in the most ingenious, extraordinary way, because there was a tab on the inside. So there were spaces for the eyes, a little sort of space to allow your nose to protrude. And where the mouth was, it was usually closed, maybe just a little sort of hint of lip. But inside, there was a tab with a glass bead, a nice round glass bead. And you would hold the mask to your face by holding the glass bead in your mouth.
Oh, wow. So like between your teeth, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, that's really incredible, isn't it? So it's this beautiful, this perfect oval. It's usually black velvet or black silk, and just this oval across your face. So it gave you this wonderful sort of anonymity.
Well, and some mystery too, I'm sure, because you can't talk with the glass bead in your mouth.
Absolutely.
So you'd have to perform to get your point across. So that's always lovely.
Absolutely. Vizard Masque had this wonderful air of mystery that could allow you to look beautiful and mysterious. It was worn also to visit the theatre. Because some of the theatres, some of the plays that were shown were quite seamy, and because the idea of visiting the theatre was quite often associated with prostitutes soliciting, women from the higher echelons would often wear a vizard when they went to the theatre to have that anonymity, so that they couldn't be observed or accused of having seen something that was a little bit too risque that they shouldn't have seen. So there's definitely an association with theatre in that respect, as it's protecting your anonymity when you're attending the theatre. But of course, obviously, the style of the theatre allowed for women of the upper echelons to be taking literally seats in the upper tiers and boxes. And so everybody spent a lot of time looking at the costumes of the ladies visiting the theatre, and their masks also protected them as they were under a lot of scrutiny. So that was one of the real sort of main uses. The other thing that is an aside, that it also had a use for beauty as well, because you could protect your complexion by wearing a vizard. Because especially after some of the very extreme beauty preparations that would really sort of strip the outer layer of the skin and leave it quite sore while it healed, if you had to go out in bright sunshine or somewhere that was a little bit gritty or dirty, it would be a great idea to wear a vizard to protect your face from any kind of environmentals whilst your face was healing and becoming fresh and new.
What does it mean that the Queen Anne's farthingale was 4 feet wide? Describe what we would have seen if she walked in wearing this item of clothing. And what did it mean when you described it as having been retired after she died? Was this a style that was, like Madonna or Michael Jackson, where there's just an outfit that is totally them and then no one else can recreate it later?
Not quite like that. The farthingale was kind of like the Elizabethan version of the crinoline. So it's a support for your skirts to hold them very, very wide. And I think most of us can think of Queen Elizabeth I in her inverted cone farthingale that had a huge circumference at the bottom, but was narrow at the waist. By the 1590s, it became a drum farthingale. So you had the same principle of a petticoat which had stays in it of usually some kind of cane to hold it in place. But instead of it being a cone, it was a drum. And so I don't know if you ever saw those, there was a fashion in Britain in the 60s and 70s for a toilet roll holder that was like a doll standing inside the toilet roll with a crocheted dress over the roll. And so the drum farthingale was a lot like that.
Where it just fits over the outside. Okay.
Absolutely. So you had this wonderful, just at the waist, you had this platform that was the width of 4 feet in this particular case. And so it emphasized a very, very slender torso and a nice little waist. Then you've got this lovely platform that goes straight out at the hip level and then straight down to the floor. And so it's like standing inside a drum, really. And it had this beautiful sense of movement as the lady walked and moved and danced. And usually they were a little bit narrower than that, still quite wide, but 4 feet was particularly wide. And so this was very much Queen Anne's signature of a nice extreme. And so, yes, you imagine all of the ladies at court wearing farthingales that wide. You've got a real issue of space.
I was thinking, it's like walking around in a great rectangle. I mean, you would have to practice just to be able to, maneuver properly in this.
Absolutely.
So fitting with what I think about her, though, in terms of, because she seems to be flamboyant in that way.
Very. Very flamboyant, absolutely. She was a very beautiful woman and very keen to show that in every possible circumstance. But there's a wonderful quote that I have in the chapter of my book, which is about a young girl of about 14 or 15, and she's dying to be old enough to be able to wear her first farthingale. And she says about how she's practicing to be able to pose her hands delicately delicately on the edge of the farthingale so that it tilts beautifully at the back and has a lovely swish of the skirt, and she can look as beautiful and as elegant as possible.
That's fantastic. How beautiful. What a trendy little girl.
Absolutely.
Now, Queen Anne, being this very flamboyant person, she did actually institute a rather scandalous clothing choice when it came to masks. What court fashion did she make trendy, and why did it cause the Puritans to clutch at their pearls?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Queen Anne was incredibly beautiful. She was very proud of her lovely blonde hair, and she often would shake gold dust through it so it would glint and gleam and look really beautiful. She was also very proud of her beautiful high white bosoms. She wanted to show off her gorgeous décolleté as much as possible, and so her bust line started to go lower and lower and lower until it was said that some of the most daring people of the court were actually putting white cerise makeup across their breasts and shoulders, and even rouging their nipples could just be seen at the base of their neckline. I know. So yes, indeed, clutching pearls, definitely.
Absolutely. She was causing quite a stir.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of Puritans, we've been told that being associated with players and playing and playhouses was to be associated with the lowest of the low. I mean, they were considered morally corrupt and unscrupulous among society, if you will. Now, how was Queen Anne able to institute a fashion choice so highly immodest alongside participating in performative theater productions and not damage her reputation at court and otherwise? To put it mildly, I mean, why was she able to make this choice and not be run out of town on a rail? I mean, she was new in England in 1603, and they were, it just seems like it was not only bold, but perhaps a little risky for her position.
Absolutely. It sounds completely extraordinary, but if we put it in the context of the massive double standards of the era, not that we don't have double standards in our own era, the thing about the court masque was it seems performative to us. It was in many ways, but it was allowed to be completely separate. And so the masque was an element of poetry and narrative, but it was also this incredible spectacle of art, and they had these incredible scenery changes that made everything absolutely extraordinary and very much sort of not like real life at all. And so that was definitely the focus. So in the masque, you as a courtier, as the queen and the most illustrious members of the court, you could participate, but not in a spoken part or a playing part, but maybe as a beautiful tableau vivant at the side of the stage, maybe singing, probably not, a little dance. As the masque progressed, so it would be the players who would come from outside the court, who would be professional actors, and they would do the narrative, and they would speak the poetry, and they would do the bulk of the performance. And there would be times when the scenery, maybe there would be one of the masques one of the first ones that Queen Anne was part of, because there had been masques in different forms since the days of Henry VIII. Anne Boleyn had first entranced him by her dance at a masque performance. And so it was a lovely opportunity to display your great beauty and your grace by dancing in front of everybody. And in this masque, that was the first one that Queen Anne did, and that was the Masque of Blackness. It is a moment of darkness and night, and you've got this incredible sort of curtains, diaphanous fabric across the stage area, which just reveal in the distance, in shadow, Queen Anne and some of her ladies looking absolutely beautiful in these gorgeous costumes, and shimmering sort of in the distance then as the play continues, the players take the stage and conclude and leave. And then some of these veils come away and the ladies come forward to dance, and they come out into the audience and they will take the hand of somebody and pull them up to dance with them. And so the rest of the evening is concluded with dancing and feasting. And so it becomes part of, I suppose it brings everybody into it. And I think the essence is very much, it was always in mythology or Arcadia. And so it's also very much divorced from reality. The idea that the queen and her ladies, they're goddesses or they're nymphs or they're some kind of incredible spiritual being. So it's not like being a terrible human who is parading themselves. It's like being this delicate goddess creature.
Pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable was not the only goal of masque costumes, but being over the top, opulent, and elaborate was absolutely the name of the game here. Sarah Jane, tell us about some of the most striking features of masque performer costumes and what made them so incredible.
Well, one of the ones that was really exciting, there's a lovely quote by one of the designers, and he's saying about how the design for this gorgeous costume for a lady shows it's very delicate, it's gossamer fabric. And he says in particular about how when she turns away, it shows the smallness of her leg to suggest that you could even see a hint of the back of the lady's knee because the skirt is so sheer and higher and much shorter than usual. So there's a lovely sort of hint of delicacy, a frisson of seduction, and definitely some practicality for dancing and performance. And as we were saying about that, the décolletage lowered and lowered. There was the festival of Tethys, and Tethys was a goddess who was goddess of oceans, and Queen Anne played her. And lots of ladies from the court played her. The rivers were the children of the goddess of the ocean. And so they each come forward and take a sort of very sinuous, sensual dance as the undulation of water. The costume, although it's quite high at the neckline, it's so gauzy and sheer that you can clearly see the bosoms and even the tummy button. And so
this is so incredible. Like, I never would have thought that this would have been going on in Elizabethan England. I think of it being so prim and proper and, everything covered, but to be out, not just wearing these kinds of clothing, but out in the middle of the room for the whole world to see.
Yes, indeed. Well, of course, I mean, you think that this is a court performance, so it is within the court specifically, and not for anyone's eyes outside. So you would know everybody that you're performing to, and it would be a matter of strictly, well, in the Stuart sense of the masques, you've got very much a sort of, it's confirming we are this illustrious and exalted group. We are the creme de la creme. We are this, we're separate to everybody else. It's our own perfect society. And there's a hierarchy within the court, but everything outside of the court is just completely ignored during this wonderful magical evening.
Well, what was the cost comparison between masque costumes and those traditionally used in a theater like the Swan or the Blackfriars?
They were incredibly expensive. Generally speaking, it's thought that it would be around about £1,400 on average as the cost of putting the masque on in the court. Most of that cost would be towards buying silks for the costumes and for the curtains and that sort of thing. So it was very expensive and very, very beautifully dressed in all senses. Some members of the courts would provide their own finery. They might bring their own things or incorporate them with their pieces. But generally speaking, the costumes were provided and very expensive. They would also provide costumes for the visiting players, because, of course, some of the theatre companies were not very well off at all. And so sometimes they would show up, and the head of the Revels office would interview the players to see who was going to be suitable to take these parts, and who even was sort of acceptable to be seen in the court. And sometimes they would look a bit shabby and be like, yes. So it'd be like, we're definitely going to provide costumes for all of you.
You're definitely going to have to change.
Exactly. But one of the great things was the Revels office paid for the costumes. And if the visiting actors were provided with them, they usually, as a perk of the job, would get to take them away. So it would be a great kudos for your theatre company to take a turn playing at the court in one of the masques, because not only would you have performed in front of the king and queen and all of the court, which might earn you the opportunity. A lot of the nobles would have a similar kind of performance in the country in their own great houses. And so it would help to boost your reputation. It might earn you extra other sort of events where you could also go to somewhere else and be paid. Also, you'd have these gorgeous costumes made for you, and you would have the kudos of being the best dressed players that anyone had seen other than that. So it was a huge advantage for you.
A huge infusion of, I guess, reputation for the, because would that mean that these costumes would show up in stage performances later at whatever theater those players took it back to?
Yes. It seems to be very much that the theatre company was not necessarily tied to a theatre. And so it was the theatre company that where they went exactly with the beautiful costumes, it would show that they had royal connections, and it would show that they were worthy.
Well, elaborate costumes were not only for the hired performers or just the king and queen at these masques. The attendees would also wear specific court attire. Sarah Jane, tell us about what a masque style would have looked like. And I'm thinking particularly if we were to analyze portraits and paintings of people from this time period, how are we able to distinguish whether or not someone is dressed in court attire versus something else?
It's very interesting. At the time, so at this period, around about the sort of going into the 1620s, it becomes quite fashionable for young women to be painted, to have their portrait taken in masque costume. And what that really signifies is, you think of the rainbow portrait of Elizabeth I many years earlier, and think of that gorgeous embroidered little bodice that she's wearing with the drapery. And that style of bodice is associated with masque costume. And you see it a lot in the 1620s. There are lots of portraits. And so you see a beautiful, richly embroidered bodice, usually with very low cut neckline. Often there are little spangles or sequins in the background of the embroidery. And often the embroidery is quite extraordinary. So you've got mythical creatures as well as natural elements of flowers, leaves, animals, and that sort of thing. So you've got that fantastical association, and you've got the low cuts bodice. And you also commonly have a drapery from the left shoulder down to the right hip that's very sort of diaphanous. Sometimes you have a beautiful diaphanous veil that's got lots of little sequins on and that sort of thing. And it was quite fashionable because masks were often performed at weddings. So you've got that association. And also you have some of the court ladies who were a little bit more daring would be painted in very, very low-cut drapery. And so you might have the fine silk drapes around naked shoulders, possibly even revealing one perfect white bosom to sort of suggest that kind of nymph and goddess kind of association that really appealed to the Renaissance sensibilities of thinking about the ancient world.
And that kind of portraiture wasn't intended to be illicit or obscene. That really had a reputation of sort of not, I don't want to say artistic, but there's a purity to it that's different than what I think people expect when they see an exposed painting of that way.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to us within our, because they are associated with the goddess. It is the idea that it is maiden purity, but with the potential of fullness as well. So it's related very much to that sort of fertility, this pagan kind of idea of the young woman going through that transition from single young woman to married young woman.
I can only imagine what it must have looked like for these players and the Masque organizers to put, I think of Ben Jonson and Inigo Jones, because those are the ones I know of associated with the masks of Blackness. But the whole idea of getting all of this equipment and accessories and costumes to the venue where they're going to be making this performance, I think that almost had to have been like a town parade, especially with as easily recognizable as, this is masque attire. Tell us what that would have looked like. And would it have been a kind of marketing for that day's presentation to watch them arrive and get into position?
Well, because it's within the court scenario, no, it's quite private and it's quite sort of protected as a private kind of event, because outside society are not really necessarily in the know of the same kind of ideas. And so to most people outside, yes, the idea of any kind of nudity like that is scandalous and it is shocking, and they're not really keen to countenance it. So definitely those incredible costumes and the incredible scenery were generally constructed within the place that they were going to be, wouldn't really have been seen much beyond the court at all. But you do have the idea of other performance, and there's this player, William Kemp. He was one of Shakespeare's company. And in 1599, he left. And the next year, he did this incredible performance where he danced from town to town to town throughout the country. And so this created this kind of parade idea as people were following as he went along to different places. And it became known as the 9 Days Wonder, although it took an awful lot longer than that. And was definitely something that was a huge spectacle. So yes, that would have happened, but not necessarily related to this kind of performance.
So all of the costumes and the sets and everything would have been built within the court or wherever the castle or Whitehall Palace, wherever it was happening. So were these planned well in advance? I mean, I guess they would have had to have planned this months ahead if they're going to build all of it there on site.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of things were recycled, and you had some incredible constructions because Inigo Jones also designed the banqueting hall. So it was, a dedicated space. So it would be fantastic to think about what exactly they had behind the scenes there, because they had these incredible sort of constructions of the cloud machines. And so you had, the clouds sort of going up and across, and you had in various performances, you would have the musicians coming down in a golden orb, or you'd have a sea scene where there are these incredible undulating waves of material that go all the way across the room and part in different directions for different scenes. And it must have been absolutely incredible to see all of this. And certainly some of the engineering is very much sort of redolent of those incredible Leonardo sketches, the designs that he made. And so it must have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to have to rethink the way I consider Whitehall Palace now, because we've known that it was built to be a venue for court masques and these kinds of performances, but I don't think I thought about the mechanics of it also being a place where all of the costumes had to be constructed and the sets had to be constructed. So some of like the height of the ceiling and the width of the space was not only making it, for acoustics and visual presentation, but was just for, this has got to be our, backstage area as well, all within there. So lots of things to think about when it comes to court masks, which leads me to our question of resources here. If we are really excited to think about this further and explore the costumes and all that went into building these elaborate presentations, from your research into this, what would you suggest we use to learn more?
There are a couple of fantastic books that are actually quite vintage. And so there's one that is The Splendors of Courts, which was Roy Strong. And I think that book even dates back to the 80s. And there is a fantastic one that I've got, which has got some beautiful illustrations in, and that goes back to the 1930s. So I'm not sure how much.
We love historical books around here, so works for me. These are great suggestions for sure. We will link you to these wonderful fashion classics, and you can find them in the show notes for today's episode. Sarah Jane, as you know from your previous visits here, we ask everyone this next question here at That Shakespeare Life, and that's, what's the one book you would take with you on a deserted island? My friends in England tell me I'm supposed to allow you the complete works of Shakespeare and a copy of the Bible, so your choice would be in addition to those.
Right. Okay. Well, I have just read this incredible book, which is Charlotte Bronte, Her Life in Clothes. And it's absolutely incredible. And so it really makes me want to read Jane Eyre again. So yes, Jane Eyre is going to be in my case.
That is fantastic. Jane Eyre is my favorite book. I have read it probably. Really? Yes, it is my absolute favorite book. And I didn't know that there was a biography of Charlotte Bronte, Her Life in Clothes. And now I'm going to have to go and check that out. And I think this is the first time I've ever said that about someone's desert island selection. So that's very fun. How exciting.
Fantastic.
Well, what's next for you? What are you working on now that you're excited about?
Oh, gosh. Well, at the moment, I think I mentioned this to you last time, Cassidy. I'm doing my first personal publication independently. And so this follows on from my most recent book, which is Beauty and Cosmetics in the Time of Jane Austen. And it's the same subject, but it's a practical, literally, because there are so many people who do reenactments and so many people who want to go to the Jane Austen Festival and participate in the parade and so on. I thought, right, so how do we actually say, well, this is what you would do about doing your makeup for the day. This is the hairstyle that you could recreate, and actually give that sort of practical, how it would work for you, how you could adapt it for yourself.
That is fantastic. A manual, a starter's guide for someone that's wanting to do this for the first time and how to do it correctly. That's a wonderful guide. We'll look forward to seeing that. Thank you so much, Sarah Jane, for being here today and helping us explore the costumes of masque performances during Shakespeare's lifetime and be able to see those up close today. This has been a fun conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Cassidy. It's been wonderful to be with you.
If you're interested in court fashion and the masks and the costuming that went into all of these elaborate performances with Queen Anne and others, you can see the resources Sarah Jane recommends that you use to learn more, all packed into the show notes. There you can find more information on our guest and her work, including her book, Fashion in Shakespeare's England, along with all of the resources she recommends for you today. You can find these things right now on our episode page at CassidyCash.com/episode 429. While you're there, don't forget that there's insider extras associated with today's show, and you can access them by becoming a member of That Shakespeare Life. Click any of the membership links on our episode page to join us there. Again, that link is CassidyCash.com/EP429. That Shakespeare Life is researched and produced by me, Cassidy Cash. Our audio engineer is Gary Mayholm. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to That Shakespeare Life. As always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at CassidyCash.com. Become a part of a vibrant Shakespeare conversation by adding your voice over at the website. Until next time, remember, when you want to know William Shakespeare, you have to go behind the curtain and into That Shakespeare Life. Some days call for some oomph to amplify your everyday look. Like when you want the look of false lashes without the extra effort. Reach for Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Volumizer Mascara. Or when you want all eyes on your smile, keep Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum in your bag. It's a burst of 24-hour hydration that smooths like a serum, shines like a gloss, and can be worn sheer or layered. You'll also look and feel your best with Thrive Cosmetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. And for every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Cosmetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.